Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Well, I say it's a fine day. It's blowing a gale outside here. Not particularly cold today, but it is blowing a gale. And I know Dan Cullen, who was here at 9:41, says, good morning from a very wet, windy Gloucester. My God, feels like -10. But yeah, it's not that cold here today, but it is certainly blowy. Gary Muirhead was here before we kicked off as well, 9:58. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, everybody. Good morning to you, Gary. Mark Whiting is here as well. Jim Turner is in the house. And our friend Mick is here as well. Morning, Mick. Good morning, Jim. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, everyone, in fact. And welcome to the first of three appearances by yours truly today. Yeah, you'll be bored with the sight of me by the end of the day. I'm here, of course, to do the usual show right now. 3:30 this afternoon, I'm going to be back to host a watch-along as Volvo lift the lid on some new products. I will tell you more about that a bit later on. And then at 7 o'clock this morning, I'll be back again to pick apart those new Volvo machines. I've already done a couple of interviews with senior Volvo people. We've got those in the can, so I'll be sharing those tonight as well. So, yes, if you're interested in that, if you can find a bit of time this afternoon, 3:30, then please join us for the watch along. Failing that, back here again at 7 o'clock to actually pick apart the product launch that Volvo are hosting. I mean, literally right about now, actually. Gary says, good time. Good. It's about time you got your fair share of the wind. It's been blowy for the past few days, actually, but it's properly picked up now. Good morning, says Ken Hatchett. Ken, just a very quick one. Thank you very much indeed. For the heads up on the Fortescue thing last night. I've actually stolen it. I've used it in an email newsletter that I've done this morning. You remember when I was at Mine Expo, I was reporting on the fact that Fortescue Mining had invested $2 billion for 360 electric autonomous Volvo Liebherr trucks. They've now done another $400 million order with XCMG. I would imagine there's some big manufacturers, non-Chinese, absolutely kicking themselves about that. Gary says, couldn't you make it along? He's talking about Volvo. Can I... Here's the thing, right? I try not to get my nose put out of joint with these things. I've been around for a long, long time, and sometimes you get invited, sometimes you don't, and that's the way it rolls. And in fairness, when you look at my name on the page and on LinkedIn and Facebook and everything else, I'm down as Demolition News, and the machines that they're launching today up at Volvo don't really stack up with Demolition. I said nothing. But then one of their directors actually contacted me and said, why don't we do something on these new machines? I said, well, yeah, I'd love to do something on these new machines. Obviously, I'm not coming. I then had an apology come through to say, we thought you'd been here so many times. I mean, I've been there about 3 times in the last year. They said, we thought you might be a bit bored. So I didn't get an invite. However, and I think partly to make up for that, we have. I mean, as I say, I did an interview on Friday last week, did another couple yesterday. So I've, in absolute truth, I've got the story ahead of everybody else, but I'm not allowed to reveal it until later on. So yes, there you are. Chris Ford says, morning, everyone. Miserable day here as well. Mick says, did you see in construction news 7,000 firms on the brink of bankruptcy? I did see that, and I also saw the news source that they got that from, which I used to create a podcast on Friday last week. You see, construction news, they may be the Jackass Journal. They may have been around for 100 years. They may have a staff of 40 or 50 people, but they can't beat me to the news. If you'd like to look at that, go and have a look over on buymeacoffee.com/demolition news. Mick says, as I was looking, my internet went down, and now I can't find that article. I've seen it, don't worry, but it is worth having a look at. It is not looking good out there. Just two other things. I'm going to sit back a bit for this. There's something new in the frame. I don't know if anybody else has noticed it. No prizes, but if you spotted anything new that is not normally here, type it in the chat, because I'd be interested to see what you make of that. Now, one other thing. If you were here yesterday, you know that I tried one of these, a magic mind drink, to give me a sharper mind together with a bit of calm energy. Yeah. I was expecting, in fact, I was hoping for a rush, a bit like a bit of caffeine or something like that to kickstart my brain. Didn't happen at all. But here's the thing. I sat down yesterday afternoon to write today's morning monologue, and it just flowed. I mean, I literally sat there with an idea in my head, looked up 20 minutes later, done. Yeah, just done. In fact, it flowed so much that I then did something else. I've been planning it in the back of my head to write a guide or a training course or something to help demolition contractors maximize their presence on LinkedIn. I'm quite good at LinkedIn, and I thought, these people aren't particularly good at LinkedIn. There's an opportunity there. The content for that has been swirling around in my brain for about 3 months now. After I knocked off today's morning monologue, I sat down to get the LinkedIn stuff out of my head. A few hours later, I reckon I'm about 85% done. Designed a book, course, whatever. It all just came. Now I can't claim it was all down to the Magic Mind drink. Maybe, and it happens from time to time. Maybe I just, hit a rich vein of creativity. But I'm taking no chances, particularly given the day I've got ahead of me. So I'm going in again. I'm going to drink this in a minute, not in front of you because you don't need to watch that. But if you do, if you could use some mental wealth of your own, we do have a discount code for you, which I'm going to put in the into the chat. There you are, Magic Bind. You get 45% off if you use that code. Going to say good morning, Plant and Equipment over on Instagram. And Earl Fallon has just joined us as well, as has our friend Magnism, who is back again. And Victornov is here as well. Yeah, absolutely. Loads of people here. Yes, without further ado, this is the bit where the show actually starts. We've already been talking for 8 minutes and I haven't done a damn thing yet. It is time for me to roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. Good morning to Golden Ladder Construction as well, also over on Instagram. I asked if you'd spotted anything new in the frame. Gary Muirhead, Gary actually knows this show better than I do. He could sit here and he could present this show probably better than me. I mean, you'd have to get used to the accent, but he could probably do that. He spotted it. There you are. It is a candle. It's just there. That candle has been sat on my desk a year, and I was lacking one thing. Box of matches. There are no smokers in this house. Didn't need matches. So I went out and bought myself a packet of matches, and now there you are. So yes, I'll come back to the question of the day in just a moment, because we've already had an answer on it, and I'll explain to you how it came about as well. But it is Tuesday, the 28th of January. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition. In today's show, Caterpillar unveils its latest line in quick couplers. Hitachi charges up its latest electric offering. John Deere takes to the slopes, and how mines take care of their workers. It's not an equipment film, that. But it was the inspiration for my morning monologue. And that morning monologue is comparing how the TLC that companies lavish on their equipment fleet with the care or the lack thereof that they show to their workers. Please stick around for that film, because you will emerge green with envy when you see how mine workers are cared for compared to how those in construction are not. You get the idea. Anyway, before we get to all of that, we do have the mystery machine to deal with, which is another colour change one today, so you'll need your wits about you. Right, mystery machine. I can see some very good answers to our and thankfully decent answers to our question of the day. I'll come back to that in just a moment. But yes, mystery machine looks like that. I have changed the colour. I'll tell you now, just save you the hassle, it's not a Kobelco. I know it looks like one, and I know it's a Kobelco colour, or at least a European Kobelco colour. It is not a Kobelco, but that is the machine I need you to identify. Let me know what you think. Make and model, if you would be so kind. While we're doing that, let me remind you very quickly of our question of the day. Yeah, our question of the day today comes from our resident quizmaster, Mr. Gary Muirhead, and I have to say, well, I thought he was leading us into potentially dangerous waters. His question of the day was this: what were your last 3 Google searches? I had to think about it, but I went and had a look. Mine, remarkably dull. One was for a website called Creator Mix, which is one of the sources I use for the music we use on the show. Another was for the MSNBC journalist Rachel Maddow. I'm a big fan. And the third was for Fortescue Mining's deal with XCMG, which Ken Hatcher gave me the heads up on yesterday. So those are my last 3 searches. I wouldn't say they're always that innocent, but what have we got here? Mick says, Trevor Phillips, Minister for Housing and Construction News. Fairly innocent. Lou Carney. Now, Lou says, flights to Malta from the UK, crispy chicken wings in the air fryer, and a pint of Stowford Press calories. Flights to Malta, I would imagine that our friend Mick would be able to help you with that, because that's his destination of dreams, as it were. Chris Ford says, dog trucker and 2 company searches. Yes, but what companies? Are they companies that you're willing to share? Maybe not. Okay, so back to the machine, the mystery machine. I can tell you that Chris Ford has gone for that. He reckons it could be a Cat 336 FL or FI. It is not. It is not a Cat. Let me show you a smidgen more. There you are. Let me take Chris out of the way so you can see. Yes, it has a bucket. Doesn't really narrow it down at all, does it? But keep the guesses coming. We'll come back to that in the fullness of time. And don't forget, what were your last 3 Google searches? That's what we'd like to know. I was going to say try to keep it clean. I don't care if they're not clean. It's not my problem. We'll be back right after this with some new products from Caterpillar. Seems like the world and his wife have got a quick coupler of their own these days. Caterpillar, not shy in coming forward. They've got theirs too. I have to say, they look pretty rough and tough, do they not? When I say rough, I mean not rough in design. I mean rough as in they can withstand the demolition duties. So, yeah, fantastic. Well done, Caterpillar. Look forward to seeing those in person at some point in the not too distant future, hopefully. Mystery Machine is, well, there's a couple of people in the right ballpark, but they're not right. We've already had the Cat 336 from Chris Ford. He also reckons it could be a JCB 370X. Jim Turner has gone for Hitachi 30-tonner. It's not, but yeah, you're kind of on the right track. Dan Cullen reckons a Sany SY135C. He also reckons it could be a Sany 175W. It's not one of those. Chris Ford also going for Hitachi 530. It's not, but you too are on the right track. There you are. There's a smidge more for you to be going on with. See what you can come up with on that. Well, speaking of Hitachi, we're back with them in just a moment. We're talking all things electric.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Just another, well, is that an additional one? Yes, Dan Cullen's also going for the SY215C from Sany. It is not one of those. So yes, Hitachi. I'm delighted to say we're going to be working with them at Bauma, which pleases me more than I can possibly tell you. I made it very clear, and I make no bones about it. I'm a big fan of certain brands. I think everyone knows I'm a big fan of Volvo, big fan of Liebherr, big fan of JCB, big fan of Hitachi, but we've never worked with them before. Done stuff alongside them. We never worked for them before. This is going to be our first opportunity, so looking forward to it enormously. Hopefully, going to get up close with one of these.
I'd like to introduce you to the ZX85-6 EB, a new 8-ton battery-powered excavator designed to meet the growing demand for zero-emission equipment. This sustainable solution contributes to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and has been designed to improve safety for operators, increase productivity on job site, and reduce life cycle costs for our customers. Let's take a closer look. With the new ZX85-6 EB, you can walk continuously and emission-free throughout the day. Choose between battery-powered operation using 100 kWh lithium-ion batteries and wired operation, which allows you to walk while charging from CEE 400-volt 3-phase power source. For faster charging, an optional CCS2 allows you to fully recharge the battery in 45 minutes during break times. Depending on your application, you can expect average runtime of 5.5 hours. Thanks to zero emissions and reduced noise levels, this is the perfect machine for urban and civil engineering job sites. Its quiet performance gives you greater flexibility for operating outside of conventional working hours, and also creates a more comfortable working environment. The ZX85-6 EB with 800-volt operating voltage provides the same powerful performance as the ZX85-6 diesel model. It shares the same hydraulic system and is also suited to walking safely and efficiently in small spaces with exceptional maneuverability. You could walk for even longer periods between charging with the optional increased 133 kWh battery capacity. This also increases the weight of the machine so that an extra counterweight is not needed. To ensure optimum and efficient performance, as well as high availability, a heat pump system keeps the battery module warm in cold weather. It also enhances durability and ensures long battery life. Now, let's look inside the cab. Comfortable and spacious, it has a heated air suspension seat. It's user-friendly with digitalized controls and a new 7-inch monitor that's easy to view and integrates every function, including the air conditioning. And the rear camera enhances the safety of the job site by providing excellent visibility. To help reduce life cycle costs, this new model has maintenance-free batteries and fewer serviceable components than diesel-powered alternatives, saving time as well as money. Remote monitoring of daily operational data, including the battery level and motor load factor, enables fleet managers to monitor energy usage, ensuring the machine is being operated as efficiently as possible. As well as reducing costs, this also contributes to the reliable performance and maximum uptime. As with all Hitachi products, the ZX85-6 EB is built to last. As our latest sustainable solution, it will help to future-proof your fleet. And we look forward to working in partnership with you to build our future.
Yeah, smart looking piece of kit. Ken Hatcher says, interesting machine. Small cabs on them, but looks nice though. Yeah, it does look nice. I totally agree. Chris Will, going back to the Caterpillar film, says, it looks like a Lenhoff coupler. Hey, who knows? Maybe there is a deal. Scratch the black paint off the Caterpillar paint. Maybe it is Lenhoff underneath. Going back to our mystery machine, which looks like that. Dan Cullen is going for the Hitachi 225. He's also going for the ZX 130. Chris Ford is going for the ZX 870. Chris is also going for the 490. Dan is going for the 350. It is none of those things. It's not the 350 either. Peter McKenna, good morning, Peter, who was doing star jumps in the background. Hitachi, good machines, shame their TVs are shy. I don't know if that's true at all. Gary Muirhead, question of the day: Caribbean cruise for 2026, gift for a 25th wedding anniversary, and a birthday gift ideas for a very special friend. Interesting. Caribbean cruise. I'd quite fancy one of those. I will bore you with the details of why I never went on one previously. And let me show you a bit more of the mystery machine, because there's something else I need to deal with. There you are. There's a bit more. I think there's a lot of people on the right track, but nobody's got the right model yet. You're not quite big enough. But when I go back to this, if Louise is still listening, Louise, let me know when you're going. I have a place out there is that Cara? I don't know how you pronounce that. Empty most of the year. That's in Malta. You're more than welcome, Lou. If you're paying attention, hit up our friend Mick. Mick, thank you very much indeed for that. It's a very, very decent offer of you, sir. Gary Muirhead reckons our mystery machine could be a Develon 420. It is definitely not one of those. Keep those guesses coming. Let me take that off the screen. What do we got next? Oh, yes, we're going logging in a second. Because, why not?
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Yeah, very quickly. I'm going to put this back on the screen. What have we got? We've got Gary went for the Develon. Chris Ford is sticking with Hitachi, rightly so. Hitachi 210, it's not one of those. It's not a Sunward. It's not a Komatsu. Hitachi 490, it's not. 225, still not. Bigger than that. It's bigger than that. There you are. There's a little bit more. I hope that helps. Take that away. Yeah, going logging. I do like to sort of dip my toe in other waters outside of construction and demolition from time to time, and I quite like me a bit of John Deere. So take a look.
I graduated high school in 2010. I decided I wanted to go to work in the woods. I wanted to make something of myself, and this seemed like the best opportunity. First job was setting chokers. I don't know how to explain setting chokers. If you're going to be a decent logger, you need to start at the very bottom and work your way up. It's all steep slopes, very little of it's flat ground. It's all mechanized logging now on this side. We still do some traditional style set chokers. The guys on the ground now have a pretty easy job compared to how it was when I started. It's much more efficient. There was 5 or 6 ground workers, and now we have 0 on that side. My favorite machine is the shovel logger 959. That's my favorite job, is feeding that hydraulic yard or shovel logging with it. Probably one of the biggest reasons that we have so much John Deere is that we haven't had very much trouble with them. Pape does a good job taking care of us. If we ever have a problem, they jump right to it. They know that that stuff has to be working, and they do everything in their power to take care of us. It's all about the people you have. You got to have your people caring and willing to work hard, and I think that makes a big difference because everybody has the same goal in mind, that we're here to get stuff done and be safe.
Any idea what setting chokers actually is? I haven't got a bloody clue. If anybody knows, I'd love to hear from you. Going back to our mystery machine, which still looks like that. First of all, I need to go back to all things Maltese. Apparently, I was mispronouncing the place in Malta. It's pronounced Aura. Aura. Yeah, I mean, I can barely speak English. What do you expect? Lots of guesses on our mystery machine. The EX650 from Hitachi. It's not the 280, not the 280 LC-5G, not the 670, not the 890, not the 890, not the 300, and it is most certainly not a Kobelco SK520 XD LC. Let me show you a bit more. Let's get Peter out of the way. You can see exactly what it is there. Those of you that are saying Hitachi, you're on the right track, but you're still not big enough. You've got to go bigger than that. Keep the guesses coming. Going to give you a quick preview of what we've got coming up later in the show in just a moment after this. So as we're speaking, those fine folks at Volvo are showing some of the press, including our mate Al Grierson. He's up there. He finally made it after his plane being struck by lightning. He's made it. He's there. He's on site up in Sweden. They are showing off their new machines. They are doing the official online launch at 3:30 this afternoon UK time. So I'm going to be doing a watch along. So I'll be back here at, I don't know, 3:25 or thereabouts. Just fire up the live show. I'll bring in their feed so you can watch it right here. So wherever you're watching this, or if you're listening, you can do it right here. So it'll be going out on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on Instagram as well. So if you fancy a bit of that, you can do that. And then at 7 o'clock tonight, we'll be digging the bones out of that, but we've also got some interviews and stuff to show you with some specialists, product specialists and directors and what have you. So this is what you've got to look forward to this afternoon. I most certainly am ready. The machines look awesome. They really do. So if you fancy a bit of that, please be here. Either 3:30 this afternoon or at 7 o'clock tonight. There is our mystery machine. We are Gary Muirhead closest yet, the EX1250. It's not the 350, not the 890, not the 490. Bit bigger. Still a bit bigger. I know it probably doesn't look it. Bear with me just a second. Let me just make sure I can... No, I can't show you another one because that would give the game away. Let me take that away. I'll put it back up on the stage there. Peter McKenna's going for the 2022 Hitachi EX1200-7B. Still not big enough. It's a bit bigger than that. Now, thankfully, for those of you who are taking part in the Mystery Machine debacle as it's going on. It's not an EX1000, by the way. Those of you that are still fighting that out, you'll be glad to know there is another film to come. And it is this film that inspired today's morning monologue. I kind of wonder about, the amount of money that we lavish on looking after machines, repair and maintenance contracts, insurance, the best fuel, the best lubricants, spare parts, remanufacturing, all of those kind of things, and then compare that with how we take care of our workers in construction and demolition. The reason I was inspired to write this is because of this film. And this film shows the care that is lavished upon mining workers. Now, I realise in Australia, those that are working in mines are miles from everything and miles from anywhere. They have mining towns that are in the middle of fucking nowhere. So I understand that. Take a look at this.
I'm Alyssa Mayer. I'm a casual utility, but I've been in housekeeping for the last 3 years.
My name's Jonathan and I'm a housekeeper at Olympic Dam. So we look after the residents' accommodation, we clean their rooms and basically just ensure they have a comfortable place to sleep in. So with the rooms, we just go in there, we start off with a few things.
You would do high dusting first, everywhere behind the TV, the shelves everywhere, and then you strip the bed after that.
We'll get rid of the dirty linen, so we'll just dispose of it in a red bag and take that out.
And then you'd have to do the bed while the other person does the bathroom.
And then we just clean the surfaces, clean everything, all the fridges, all the sweeping, so the resident has the clean room to come into when they fly in. So we clean about 40 rooms-ish a day.
And obviously you're out and exposed to the wind, to the temperature, like it's in and out of rooms. You're running around most of the time as well, so you get sweaty. It's quite a fast pace, like it's continuous work. You work 12 hours a day, like obviously you have an hour break in that 12 hours, so it's hard. I would tell someone that wanted to do this for the first time, being prepared mentally, because it's tough. It's really, really tough. You're away from friends, family. You should have some sense of independence.
Through the long, hard days that you work, it comes down to the teamwork and the support that you get. The supervisors are great. They're long hours, but you're well looked after.
For me, it's amazing. It's rewarding because I have freedom here that I wouldn't have in a normal job back in Adelaide. Like, you're not being watched 24/7, like you're being trusted out in the field.
It's probably the best thing I ever did, to be honest, because it has been quite life-changing. I made another family, I think, up here, so that's great, and yeah, you got a lot of benefits that come with it. You have that time off when you come back, and you can relax and spend time with your friends in that time, so it's very rewarding for sure.
So hold that thought, because that's what the morning monologue will be about. We don't have a winner today on our mystery machine. That's what it is. We've got lots and lots of guesses. Just before we went into that film, Gary said the EX1000, the 1800, which he's done twice, the 950. Dan Cullen going for the 890 LC-7. It's not. Chris Ford going for the EX1200-7. It's not. I'll show you. It is, in fact, that's what it should look like. That right there is the EX2600. None of you went quite big enough. It's bigger than it looks. EX2600. So while we've still got that film fresh in your mind, let me say that's about it for the main part of today's breakfast show. There's more to come. 3:30, 7 o'clock, if you fancy a bit of that. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, then do please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Hope to see you again very soon. In fact, I hope to see you again in just a few hours, or maybe this evening. Listen, check back, see if the Magic Mind drink is still working. I may just crash and burn, who the hell knows. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I'll be back immediately after this. I'd like you to imagine something. You're in the market for a top-spec excavator. None of your cheap rubbish either. This is an investment, a statement of intent. You're buying this baby for the long term. You look at all the main manufacturers. You weigh up all the individual models they offer, and you specify your chosen machine with a veritable shopping basket of optional extras. By the time you're done, you've spent £500,000 simply to get that machine delivered. And that's when the money really starts to rack up. Your sexy new machine will be working in some pretty tough conditions. So first and foremost, you need to insure it. That insurance is expensive, more expensive than it was last year, and that was more expensive than the year before that. But you can't risk it, so you grudgingly pay the money to safeguard your precious new machine. Of course, this being 2025, your machine still requires fuel and lubricants, both of which are A, expensive, and B, subject to major price fluctuations. But a machine without fuel is basically a big paperweight, so you bite the bullet once more and you fill it with fuel. Time and time and time again. You want your machine to be available at a moment's notice. So while Dave in the yard is quite handy with a set of spanners, you invest in a repair and maintenance contract with your local dealer. Every new hose, every new filter, and every new wiper blade is a genuine part. You know you're paying through the nose, but it's no less than your new machine deserves. Besides, there's that all-important resale value to worry about. Over the course of your machine's life, you'll spend more on fuel than you did on the piece of equipment. You'll pay for services and repairs. There'll be replacement parts and possibly new additions along the way. And then, when that machine has been hard at work for, say, 5 years, you might consider getting it remanufactured. That remanufacture will be less expensive than an entirely new machine, but it won't be cheap either. Your machine initially cost you £500,000, but by the time you move it on to someone else, it's cost you what? £1 million? £2 million? More? Now consider this. Let's say you have an employee and you're paying them $35,000 a year. They're loyal to you and you're loyal to them. As a result, they stick around for the next 30 years. Over the course of their career with you, they will cost you somewhere in the region of £1 million. Like your shiny new machine, that worker will be required to operate in some pretty tough conditions. So you give them the cheapest hard hat you can find and a flimsy high-vis vest. The boots you're offering are also cheap. So cheap, in fact, that they're uncomfortable. So your worker buys his or her own. Your worker is also insured, but mainly to ensure that your arse is covered should they hurt themselves in the workplace. Like your machine, these workers need fuel. But it's not really your problem. In fact, you're not that bothered whether they're fueled or not, or if the fuel they choose is of poor quality are likely to clog up their hoses. As for lubricants, you're hoping they're lubricated with nothing stronger than water or coffee, but you dare not check just in case. We can't afford to send them home, even if they have had a pint or 4 at lunchtime. Unlike your fancy new machine, your worker is not regularly maintained. In fact, while your machine is parked up from time to time, sent back to the depot or to the dealer for a thorough once-over, there's no time for such things with workers. They're expected to be on site 5, 6, maybe even 7 days a week. They don't get checked over. In fact, they don't have time to be checked over. They're too busy working. They get no replacement parts, no upgrades, aside from a new high-vis vest that you grudgingly provide when the old one has fallen apart. There's no resale value either. In fact, while your machine is removed from the fleet, excuse me, thought I was going to sneeze. In fact, while your machine is removed from the fleet when it's clocked up 5, 6 or 7 years, hard graft, your worker will quite possibly work 6 times longer than that. They will see your shiny new machine come and go. They'll see its replacement come and go. And then they'll see another 3 or 4 times before they too are packed off to the construction scrap heap. I don't want to labour the point, but you'll spend as much on a decent worker as you will on a machine. And yet, while that machine is lavished with tender, loving care, that worker is often seen as a necessary evil, an operating cost, expendable. Have we not got our priorities a bit wrong here? So there you are. That's my thought for the day. As I say, inspired by that, looking at how the mining industry takes care of their workers. Mark, go to your WhatsApp, please. I'm going to my WhatsApp right now, Peter. Bear with me. Peter McKenna. The one you've shown is the EX1200. Well, I know what you're saying, and I know you're watching this very closely because you pulled me on this before, but bear with me 1 second. If I go to my full history, that's not the one I want. I can't see the specific one. But if what I will show you, just so we're all clear, and yeah, listen, I'll be the first to admit if I've made a mistake. I have no issue with that. But there we are. That is my search term this morning. I was looking specifically for the EX 2600, which you can see, well, maybe able to see at the top of the screen there. And those are the array of machines that I got. And I ended up with the one that I got. So, listen, if I've made a mistake, my apologies. That's what I ended up with. If I can't actually read it from here, it's far too small. I tell you what, I do have it somewhere else. Let me go and have a look, see if I can find it. Mystery machine. No, can't make it out on there either. So if I've got the wrong machine, I apologise. There was me thinking the Hitachi 2600 had twin dipper arms. You live and learn. Hey, listen, I may well have got it wrong. In which, well, not that it makes a blind bit of difference. It's all over bar the shouting this month, as it normally is, because I think Dan Cullen's probably got this one in the can. But there we are. So let me go back to where I was with the monologue. Dan Cullen says, very good points there, Mark. Yeah, I'd like you to think about that. No, in actual fact, I would go to somebody else because they're agreeing with me, and I prefer comments that agree with me. Mick says, sorry to say, mate, your monologue is so true, but it's been that way since I first came into the game. I've seen blokes carried off site and the gates locked before the ambulance turned up years ago. Yeah. And what I don't understand, well, I do understand. I mean, I'm not naive. I know how the world works. But you have companies all over social media talking about how their people are their greatest asset. So why not treat them like that? And I'm not saying they should be polished and given a happy ending at the end of every working day. But if you want those workers, I mean, I laughingly said, if you're loyal to them and they're loyal to you, you could employ somebody for 30 years. How often does that happen? I mean, and I know it's something that happens very, very rarely these days in the world of football. Very, very rarely do you find a person that sticks with the same club for the entirety of their career. How often does that happen in construction and demolition? Not often. And yes, there is always that temptation to go down the road for another 20 quid a week or whatever it might be. I understand that. But would you be looking for that extra £20 a week if you were completely content where you were? If you thought you were being well cared for, if you thought you were valued or anything like that, would you even be looking for the extra 20 or 30 quid a week? I don't think you would. I really don't think you would. And why is it? I've kind of got an imbalance with this. So those mines in Australia, which is what we've just featured, they are in the middle of nowhere. So I guess if you want to convince people to go and work out in the middle of the outback, sweltering hot, middle of nowhere, they're dining on dust all the live long day and everything else, then maybe you need to put in place those kind of facilities to tempt them up there and to keep them well looked after, to ensure that you get the very best from them. But that is an enormous undertaking to put in, to basically build a town, to build facilities, takes an enormous amount of effort, an enormous amount of resources, an enormous amount of money. If you're in construction, you're often provided a toilet, but grudgingly. There's nowhere to eat, nowhere to wash your hands. Your PPE, if you lose it, you get punished for it because they're providing it free of charge. Just why? Why is it? And I was on a job. Somebody mentioned this to me the other day. I can't even remember who it was. No, can't remember. I went up to film Armac Demolition. They were working up at Wembley Stadium. There's kind of an approach to Wembley Stadium, and they were demolishing that over the period of about a weekend. They think they started on a Friday, finished on a Sunday. So we went up there a couple of times. Now, Armac do things right, but they're working away from home. So, they're from Solihull or thereabouts, and they were working in London. So they brought along things like, additional attachments, additional machines. They had the Pertec guy on standby, but from Birmingham, not from the locale, because he knew their machines. But they'd also brought in a food van. And the food van, kid you not just good food for a van, good food, full stop. Good food, full stop. I had a chili con carne from it. Absolutely top notch. Really top notch. And they did that. As I say, their guys are working away from home. They're working long hours, tough conditions. They've got to get a job done, so they need to be fueled and fueled and watered and everything else. But as a result of that, those guys worked incredibly hard. They did a fantastic job. I would imagine their staff turnover at places like Armac and at AR Demolition is very, very small indeed, because their guys feel cared for. Even little things. I've mentioned AR Demolition. All of their machine operators have their name or their nickname on the machine. It's a tiny thing, but that becomes their default machine. It's one man, one machine. They look after that machine because that machine looks after them. They take enormously good care of those machines. So everybody wins. They get a really well cared for new ride to pose in, and the company themselves get operators that are loyal, that are going to take care of the machines. Everyone's a winner in that. So why are some companies the exception, and why is that not the rule? Mick says, got to say, and as Dan and a few others have said, the blokes on the ground are just that. 95% of company owners don't give a fuck about their workforce. How stupid is that? How stupid is that? Best paid football player, $150 million a year. Yeah. Nice work if you can get it. Whenever we had a shutdown on the railway, they supplied food too. And one time it was a double-decker bus kitchen, and it was restaurant quality. Yeah, so again, why is that a rarity? Now, I'm not suggesting that we have sort of luxury facilities to bed down in at night. I'm not suggesting they get Gordon Ramsay to pop by to knock up lunch for everyone. But basic human needs, would it be that hard? Even things like making sure that people take an actual break. How many of you guys, I'm looking out at the operators here. So Dan, Chris, Jim, Ken, if he's still here, Gary. When lunchtime rolls around, will you actually get out of your machine? Will you actually get out of your machine, stretch your legs, creak your back into an upright position, go take a pee somewhere, have a drink, have a chat? Will you do any of that, or will you stay precisely where you are? Now, from a physical health point of view, I mean, listen, what I do for a living is a piece of piss. You could train a monkey to do it. Look, they did. But when I finish this show, and I'm usually sat here for about 7 o'clock. Sit here, and I pop out and make myself a cup of tea every once in a while, but basically I'm sat here from about 7 till about 11:30. But when 11:30 rolls around, I stand up. have to get all me bits and pieces realigned and give myself a stretch. And I go off and do something else before I sit back down again. Do you get that? Do you get that opportunity? Chris Ford, toilet, no paper, the wise carry a roll. Really? Now, again, I will highlight the fact that there are exceptions. I've mentioned this before. I was on a Rob Collard, an R. Collard demolition job over in West London once, a couple of years ago. And their toilet facilities were cleaner than my toilet facilities at home. And not just that, on the wall above the urinals, they had like a Dulux colour chart for you to check the colour of your own pee. And if you went too dark, there was advice there: go take a drink. If your pee is that colour, go take a drink. And there was water available. But I remember that, and I remember it not because I'm a toilet fetishist. I remember it because it was outstandingly good. Why should that be the exception? Was it Oliver or Ramsey offered a couple of big construction companies their services but was turned down? I don't remember. Don't remember hearing about that. I do remember watching, what was the fellow with the spiky hair? Gary Rhodes. And sadly no longer with us, which I find deeply shocking because he was fit as a fiddle. But Gary Rhodes, this is when I got my respect for Gary Rhodes. He always came across as a bit of a twat, the spiky hair and the silly trousers and everything else. And he was a little enthusiastic about food and all that. But he did all this sort of fine dining and the fancy nonsense. But in one episode, he actually went and he had an egg, bacon and sausage bap on a construction site. And he had egg rolling down his chin and he had tomato ketchup sticking it, in the corners of his mouth. And he literally went, now that is proper food. I thought, hey, actually, this fella, me and him would be all right. We could get along quite nicely. Because they're looking at the pound signs, they don't give a crap on the stress of the workers, seen it too much. And yet, I'm just going to say goodbye to Dan because he's on his way out the door. Have a good day, Dan. The crazy thing with this, and let's do stress as the starting point. If your workers are stressed, sooner or later, something will give. They'll phone in sick because they just they're not in the right frame of mind on one day. So you're going to lose a bit of productivity, or they end up becoming, truly mentally ill, and you lose them for days, if not weeks. Okay? So it's a false economy. If you, instead of that, and this costs nothing, you occasionally put your arm around their shoulders, gave them a bit of encouragement, gave them a bit of gratitude every once in a while, you might not get that stress. As a result of not getting that stress, you might not get them losing hours at work. They'd feel better, you'd do better, everyone's a winner. Mick says, always carry a few sheets of Kazi paper in my back pocket. The Girl Guides drummed that into me, or the Scouts. Well, I hope for your sake it was the Girl Guides. Who wouldn't want something sensible like that drummed in by some Girl Guides? Probably giving away too much about my personality right now. But yeah, I mean, surely in this, it is 2025. Let me remind you, it is 2025. Surely a decent, clean toilet with toilet paper, hot and cold running water, and access to bottled or decent quality drinking water. Surely today that is a basic human right. It's not a luxury. It's not it'd be nice if we could. Surely that is a basic human right, is it not? And yet, I found that certain industries look after you better than others, i.e. railway, oil and gas industries and wind farm projects. Whether it's money, digs, generally look after your well-being. Why is that? I understand with rail and with petrochem and with the nuclear industry, they have very, very exacting standards in terms of safety. So, the PPE is just so, and the way that they check their, the whereabouts of their workers, and you clocking in and clocking out multiple times a day. I understand all of that. But why is it that, and bearing in mind, we are butted right up against them. There's construction There's the rail industry. There's the nuclear industry. There's the, we're all side by side. So why is it that if you're on a wind farm project, you get a decent toilet, you get a bottle of water, you get toilet paper, but if you're on a house building site, at worst, take a pee in the bucket of your excavator. Why? Sign of old age. Have to do the same myself. I set if I stay in one position too long. Also suffer from TB, tiny bladder. Well, yes, yeah. I do think your bladder does shrink. I mean, I was always when I was a drinker, I was always very conscious of the fact that a pint in meant 2 pints out. I could never quite fathom how that came about. But yeah, the older I've got, I'm generally a 2 times a night man now. Prostate is healthy. I've had that checked, just to be clear. It's like your tools and equipment on site. If you want them to last, you look after them. So why isn't the same for your staff? Yeah. And that, to be honest, that's exactly why I did the comparison of man and machine. If you've got yourself a decent, mid-range excavator, over the course of its life, by the time you've paid for it, fueled it, insured it, lubricated it, given it spare parts, services and everything else, that's going to cost you £1 million. And that's going to last you 6, 7, 8 years. Over here, £1 million. Worker could last you 30 years, but you heap all of that, the tender loving care over here, and you treat this fella over here like shit. How does that make any sense at all? Mick says, let's face it, a lot of firms supply canteens on site and on site, and so on. Sorry to say, the toilets are treated like shit with the workforce, and as are the canteens. I can understand some of the reasons. Oh, listen, I mean, I've been onto sites where they have provided toilets and the staff there have used them, well, they've treated them like what they're doing in them, which, again, I don't understand that. I mean, obviously, this is not the starting point of the whole thing, but if that's your workplace and you use the loo, knowing full well that one of your colleagues is likely to follow you in there at some point, would you not give it a bit of a spruce, a bit of a spray maybe, a bit of a clean? Particularly knowing that full well that at some point you've got to go back in there. Is that not just common sense? What do we got here? Jim says, stress usually means one of two things, either in the wrong job and can't cope, or not being treated right and not speaking up about it. If I'm not happy, I don't hold it in and make myself unhappy. I tell the person that needs telling and makes them unhappy. Things either change or we part company. Yeah, you've said that before. No, you've said that before, and I think it's a valid thing, but I will say the same thing, and I'm sounding like a broken record here. I will say the same thing to you, Jim, on this occasion, as I've said on previous occasions. And I mean this in the nicest possible way, you're big enough, old enough, and ugly enough to be able to have that conversation. Would you necessarily be having that conversation if you're 18, 19, 20, still a bit green, still a bit wet behind the ears? Would you be doing that? Lou Khan is back. Mick, wow, thank you. I've booked an apartment in Valletta overlooking the Battery and the harbour. Love Malta and Gozo. Been going since I was a wee girl. I remember you going to Gozo when not quite a wee girl, but I remember you going there. Do want to say good morning to Granite State Demolition, who've just joined us over on Instagram. They're kind of catching the tail end of this as we're landing the plane here, so to speak. But yeah, if somebody can explain to me, and I'd love to hear from you, if somebody can explain why we take such good care of our equipment that we're only going to keep for 5 or 6 years, and we take such poor care of our workers who we may well have around for 30 years, I'd love to hear from you, because I'm sure there is a good reason, but I don't know what it is. Chris Ford says, when I was a lad, you look forward to going to work, if only for the crack. A lot of that has now been removed. It's surprising how site morale takes a dive. Too many snowflakes in management now. I've never had that so much, but what I would say is the thing that attracted me to this industry was precisely that. It was the crack, the banter, the people. Yes, demolition construction people are a bit rough around the edges, but they're sort of the earth, and yeah, even if they're winding you up, you're having a bit of a laugh. And if somebody says to me, "I'm going to go to a demolition site," I look forward to it. Not just because I'm going out and getting out in the open air, but you know full well you'll encounter some characters. You'll have a bit of a giggle. They may take the piss out of me because I'm a bit of a softy compared to a demolition man, and I'm more than willing to take that. I fully understand that. I feel like that's gone. I go on sites now, and I think it begins literally even before you actually set foot on the site itself. Everything is now so regimented, and I understand that from our health and safety point of view. I do fully understand that. But, sign-in and induction processes and checking of cards and retina scanners and fingerprints and checking your PPE, it feels like you're going to the office. And one of the things that made demolition and construction sites so good was that they weren't like the office. And yet now, Lou said, sorry, had to jump on Teams. Yeah, Teams meetings and Zoom meetings, the very bane of my existence. I once worked with this old guy who had trouble passing water. He told the doctor he would hold it in until break time. Don't ever do that again. When you've got to go, just go. Yeah. I remember being told, and turns out this is complete nonsense, the idea of holding your pee to extract more nutrients from it. Horseshit. By the time it's pee, it's basically toxic. Get rid. Lou, Mick says, Lou, I sold my place on Gozo. Marshafon? I don't know. Moved back to Malta. Now thinking of moving back to Gozo. It's getting overrun on Malta, he says. Always treat people as you would like to be treated. It goes a long way. Yeah. I wrote something on Instagram, not on Instagram, on LinkedIn. If you are trying to make your name on social media as a whole, but particularly on LinkedIn, you are advised to be authentic, to be your true self. Imagine living in a world where that is considered advice-worthy. Should you not just be living your life like that? Here I am, warts and all, take it or leave it. I would particularly do what I do for a living. If I've said this before, if I'd arrived here nearly 5 years ago and hello, good morning, this is the Breakfast Show, coming to you live from Surrey. How long could I have kept that up before somebody went, he's from South London, that bloke. Who's he trying to kid? You wouldn't be fooled for a minute. People are trying to fool each other. What the hell? Do they not think that one of these days they might actually bump into real people? I don't understand it at all. Jim says, I've always been fairly forthright, even as a young fella. Not everyone is. And I think particularly, if you've come out of a school background, if you've spent the last, 10, 12 years at school or college or whatever it might be, you're told, do this, do that, do this, do that. By the time you get onto site, you're quite used to having that. Chris Ford says, we're going to the loo, avoid taking salts, especially summer salts. Okay, I'll bear that in mind. Lou says, we used to have a family home in, I don't know how to pronounce that, but there. I don't know how to pronounce it. Stunning Island, she says. Mick says, anyway, Lou, if you ever need it, let me know. Sea facing and Paul, gated and well secure, believe me. Kind of tempted to hit you up myself, actually, Mick. But there are plans afoot in this household. I'll keep you posted. Let's have a look. See the way the young girls talk now is unbelievable. This twang, unbelievable and silly. It's not just the girls either. And apparently that place is pronounced Shara. I need to brush up on my Maltese because I'm a mile off, apparently. Listen, I'm going to tell you a story now, and this is going to make me out to be very, very old and very, very miserable, both of which are incredibly true, so I'm not ashamed. So not far from where I live, there is a Tesco Express, one of these little convenience stores. And I stopped off, I don't know, pint of milk, something like that, walked in there, and there weren't many people in there. And one of the guys in there was, I don't know, he was probably 19, 20. baseball cap on back to front, tracksuit, and he was on his mobile phone. I'd love to know where he thought he was from. Okay, and I can't. I'm going to try and do the impression. All right, blood. Yeah, I is in Epsom. I is in Epsom. Okay, now, but to be clear, he was white. Let's just get that clear. I is in Epsom. Nah, bruv. Ain't no ute in here. Apparently, no young people in Epsom. Ain't no ute in here. Now, chances are this guy probably grew up in Surrey. Surrey's about as posh as it gets. It's posher than most of London. Who the hell did he think he was fooling? I mean, not only did he look a twat, he sounded an even bigger twat. What is that? You know, and I made the point of saying he's not white. Even black people, you know, that have picked up a bit of, I don't know, a bit of Jamaican or West Indian. No, they don't speak like that. They might have a Jamaican accent or a West Indian accent or an African accent, but they don't speak like that. Ain't no ute in here. Fuck off. Dan says, morning, Lou. Hope you're well. Must get in touch soon. Regards, Plantworks, he says. I hate the word bro, bruv, fam. Oh, don't get me started. Don't even get me started. Yeah. There's another one, which one of my kids used to say because he knew it wound me up. I heard it once. You know, I mean, when I grew up, my standard greeting to all of my mates was, all right. Yeah, it was an abbreviation of "Are you all right?" But one of my son's mates had picked up on, you know, that abbreviation of "What's going on?" Guan. And now, if he wants to wind me up, Guan. Nearly spat out my tea. The Epsom Massive, yeah. Down with the ute. Sweet God Almighty. When people say that to me, I ignore them. Yeah, not right. I'm not your family, I'm not your bro, so shut it. Yeah, quite right. That accent is what we call onji. Onji, like as in Ali G. I don't know, but yeah, sounds like it does sound like Ali G. And bearing in mind, just to wind back a little bit here, Ali G was a comedy construct. Okay, is it because I is black? The guy's Jewish and white. That was the joke, and yet you've got an entire generation have gone, I have found my role model. That's precisely how I need to speak henceforth. What we got makes me laugh when people say the posh part of the Isle of Dogs, meaning Canary Wharf. Well, you know, I mean, in the offices at Canary Wharf, maybe, but I take your point. Will you say "guan away" with you as "f off"? Yeah. See, we should do that. We should do regional insults as a question of the day. Not sure any of them would be repeatable, and I'm not entirely sure I'd pronounce them right. But yeah, regional insults. Jim, Chris, I'm looking specifically at you guys. But Gary, I'm sure you Scots must have a fine way with an insult. Maybe we'll get to that one of these days. Anyway, people, that's more than an hour of your time. I need to go and rest my weary bones, finish my Magic Mind drink, because I'm going to be back here about 3:25 this afternoon. If you're about, failing that, I hope to see you at 7 o'clock tonight. It's going to be a very Volvo-y kind of day. So if you fancy a bit of that, having a look at the new machines, then join me if you can. The one at 3:30, and I realise you're all busy, and I realise you're working, or a lot of you are working. All I'm going to do is grab the feed from the Volvo launch itself and play it through my channels. So I won't be doing a lot. I'll just introduce it and then sit back and I'll watch it along with you. 7 o'clock, I've got a bit more interactive with you because I've got some stuff to show you and stuff. But we'll get to all of that anyway. Let's have a look. Hopefully, see you at 3 or 7. Look forward to it, Dan. And Jim Turner, it would have to be done as a voice note. Well, I'm open to voice notes as well. If you, I would not take it personally. If you would like to send me regional insults, I'm opening myself up a bit. Regional insults as voice notes, you know where to find me. We've got WhatsApp. We've got speakpipe.com/demolition news. However you'd like to send us your regional accents. And I'm going to throw this over to Instagram as well. If you're in another part of the world, wherever that might be, I mean, I've got somebody watching at the moment called Enda O'Doherty. I'm guessing they are either Irish or they're based in Ireland. If you've got a good regional insult from Ireland or from anywhere else, please let us have it. I'd love to hear from it. Mick says, stay safe, fellas. And lady, I'm off till later. Enjoy, my friend. Enjoy. I'll be back 3:25 or thereabouts and at 7 o'clock. Till then, everybody, have a fine and splendid day. All the best.